the problem with or any company like us is not that कि आप टेक्नोलॉजी बना पाओगे कि नहीं. It's more about will you be able to deliver the right value to the customer at the right price point at the right time. I think there is a marriage of three things. To all the entrepreneurs, right, like watching your channel, what I want to say is that this is your opportunity. India is a land of plenty. I mean, there are so many use cases within electric vehicle that needs to be solved. Right. But that India में एक और hardware company build करना है, that was something that I was really worried about. क्योंकि last time I had seen that nobody funds in hardware company. They are not very great example of successful hardware companies in India. At the end of the day, if we come up with the best product market fit for the Indian customers, consumers, it will also push the entire ecosystem to build products not inferior to, I would say, a diesel or a CNG vehicle, but equally strong product that are capable to replace them.
Hey, hi. You're watching Maxson Mobility, and I'm your host, Maxson Lewis. And with me, I have Saurav Kumar, CEO, founder of Euler Motors, son of Bihar, if I were to put it that way. Someone who's creating waves in the EV ecosystem, especially in the EV cargo space right now. Welcome to Maxson Mobility, Saurav. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'm feeling very excited to be here. And hopefully, we'll have a very interesting conversation.
Trust me, it's going to be interesting.
So
let's start. Let's make it very interesting. So, third time entrepreneur is what I heard about you. Is that right?
Third, I'm thinking about when is the third time, but second time to definitely.
You're not counting the UAVs that you did tried a hand at.
Oh yeah, I did that.
So tell us about this journey, right? So who's Saurav? How did he land here? And what has been your journey like?
So as much as I remember, like going back, I was always interested in robotics. I think if there is one area of, I would say, engineering technology, it's robotics that always fascinated me. And it all came from maths and physics, and like initially love for engineering, but all of that, like trying to build robot when you were in school, the Pisarpikuram, then going to college, building then again line follower robots, doing hardware and software, more of that. Like I think moving away from just being I would say a mechanical robot, but how can software further I would say augment that. And my also, by the way, I did my bachelor's in computer science, so software had to be there. But I think even in bachelor, I ended up doing almost all parts of engineering. While you're building robots, you have like wheels, gears, these batteries. So almost about mechanical, electrical, electronics. All of that was like natural sort of extension to this vehicle. And there is always this fascination that the machines and system around us, right? Like how can they be more intelligent so that while you are like maybe moving around or you're sitting here, like for instance, can your phones be more smarter? Can the cameras be more smarter? So there was always that degree of thinking of bringing like some kind of consciousness to all of the machines. Robotics, I mean, and while also you grew up, when you watched all of these movies, right? James Bond movies, of autonomous car. There is like remote car that was running around like in the movie, or there are these UAV modes. So always fascinated by like what engineering can do, space movies. So that always pushed that boundary of imagination on what future machines can be, and then our own journey, right? Like from college to school to college to going to France, then going to US, uh, studying at Cornell, again building all kinds of drones, underwater vehicle, uh, then not being able to do that for a while, then starting your own company in the phone space, trying to add intelligence to what a smartphone can do, and now building vehicles. So I think if something can define me, I would say that I try to push the boundary of adding intelligence to, I would say, to vehicle hardware, or it could be phone, it could be devices around you, and being able to think bit ahead and try to imagine that reality and live that reality, and then try to recreate it with the tools that you have of today. And 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 I actually enjoy doing that. So I think uh, even at Euler, it has been like 6 years. The journey has been like up and down and almost everything. But one thing that I always enjoy till date, I mean, going through almost everything, is the love for the product, like being able to be proud of like what you've been able to do. And like if you go back and what I see today, I think what we've done at Euler's team and us is being able to imagine that you would be able to run these electric vehicles in this particular way. And India has its own ecosystem, it has its own sort of challenges, it has its own sort of advantages. How would some of this would look like in a, I would say, Indus Valley kind of a situation, not in a Silicon Valley situation, right? And what kind of technology or what kind of solutions you need to make it possible here. I think that's the part that I love, and everything else is like for that love. You try doing the business part, you try wearing the suits and like walking into meetings and like trying to do business, but that's the actual love that you.
That's very interesting, Saurav. And I'm going to ask you more about the Indus Valley versus Silicon Valley. That's coming up later, but it's a nice one that you built up. But tell me about let's go back in time, and we're going to talk a lot about Euler as well. But Code 26,
Cube 26.
Cube 26, that's your first formal enterprise, right? And for those of you who do not know this, Cube 26 was acquired by Paytm. So tell us about that journey as well, because I think that what you learned there is also then going to come into how you have built yourself as a personality and how Euler is. So what was the journey there and what did you do there?
So Cube 26, we started in 2012, me and with two other co-founders. Uh, what we saw in 2012 was that there was a disruption happening in the way we were using our phones. Prior to that, you had these feature phones, and we were using it to call, message, and then the compute power in your phones was becoming better. There were new sensors coming, whether it was accelerometers, gyroscope, or cameras. And what we saw, that same possibility, that can this phone be more than being able to call, and then your smartphone was at that time just beginning to appear. And again, I would say the same thing, right? Like I think the whole Cube 26 thought process was built on that. Can these devices be more smarter? And what we did, or our value add at that point of time, was to be able to imagine some of these use cases and bring it to the devices and show. And like for instance, I'll give you an example of something that we built. Was, let's just say I have a phone and I'm watching a video. Someone walks into the room. You look at the person. The video, now the phone knows that you're no longer watching, and it would pause the video. And when you start watching it again, it just starts to resume. This simple thing is very, very intuitive, right? Like if I look at the person who has come in, and then you're talking to them, it knows that you're no longer attentive and maybe I should pause. So that, being able to add that kind of intelligence, I think that is what we were driving. We built things around browsers where you look at it and it recognizes that it's you, and then it maybe logs in into your Facebook. It allows you to do parental controls, and we wanted to then push this also to televisions. That when you were, in fact, like we wanted to, let's just say you're watching a movie, there is some, let's just say 19 plus 20 plus content that is coming in. If you're a kid, it automatically like tries to skip that particular part. So we wanted to push that boundary of what the devices can do. I think that that was the genesis, the thought behind Q26, and we worked with, I think, almost every smartphone company in India, some in Japan, some in China, and we built the operating system. We delivered some of the joy. I think some of this also came in television, where like you would like take selfie with a blink, all kinds of like
Wow.
cool things that you can do.
That's just very interesting, and I'm sure some of the tech or the thought process that you had those build those and the intuitive part of it. We're going to see, or we are already seeing a lot of reflection of that in the Euler model. But just before we go to Euler, why the name Q26? What's behind this name?
Yeah. So you have that Rubik's cube, right?
Yes.
Like, so you have those 3 by 3 cube. There are total like 27 of them.
Yes.
And think of that, like when you're interacting with them, there's always one cube which is at the center of it, which you never get to access. That was the software that was written in that hardware. So you actually interact with that 26 faces. The one of them was always hidden. So that's how. And three-dimensional world thought of a cube, and then 26.
Wow. So there's a lot of thought behind that name. And then when did you exit, or what was the exit?
So,
like?
2018 is when the transition happened. So, toward the end of 2017, we've been thinking about the next step, and I think we arrived at a point that the journey that we wanted to build. So, originally we had this approach of obviously building the software, and we also wanted to build the hardware part of it, to build the overall, I would say, provide the best experience, right? Like otherwise, it was always a software layer on a different phone or a different, let's just say, television, and the interface and everything was not totally under your control. So the experience was not always the best that we were. So we wanted to build the hardware, but I think we were a bit naive back then. While on the job, I think we all learned business. I would say that we all went to business school while working at 26 in a day-to-day job, right? We got to learn about negotiation. We did fundraise. We went through, I would say, a merger and acquisition. So you learned like the majority of like how do you scale up, how do you manage team, what are the challenges, the conflict resolution, almost all the things that they probably teach you at business school,
Right.
but in real life. So it was really fun to work at Q26, and then eventually we realized that uh, it would best be integrated inside Paytm, and I think we found everyone that was working there a home. And then I decided at that point that I want to do something else. And because Paytm was already a fairly large organization when this was happening, so I wanted to still go back and figure out what I want to do. And there were few things were very clear, like, and I think this you would also probably recognize, is that uh, whatever you do, I mean, fundamentally it takes like 8, 10 years, 15 years to make an impact. Like I don't know how many audience was watching the show would even know Q26, but it was almost like 7 years of my life, right? So it takes a lot of time before you actually fundamentally move things for people. Um, and it was all, I think around 30 I was contemplating what should I build next, right? I had realized that matlab, in this 8, 10 years that you would build something, things are going to go up and down. I mean, it's not good. I mean, sometimes there are going to be headwind, sometimes it is going to be tailwind, and then there are shit winds. Like there are all kinds of situations, right? Like, so you can't predict the environment. There are going to be things that you can control, but there are things that are like beyond your control. And I think we saw that in last 7 years with COVID, and some are almost not like nobody can predict such things, right? So if you and I was turning 30, so I knew that like there are going to be 1 or 2 decades that you can spend on a problem, and what are some of the big problem statement that you can make impact, because I think, and this I tell to everyone, almost every VC pitch probably, right? And this is true. Like the amount salary that Yahoo paid me in US, right, when I was working for them. Oh, aaj tak, never, we have not touched that. So, but that was not the only thing that mattered. I would say for me. Through and through, I mean, my school, my college, Cornell, all of it was paid on scholarship through Sulab International. So I always had that sense of giving back and building like it's not something that I just want to accumulate for myself, but what are the things you can also do for the ecosystem. And that was there that I wanted to push that boundary and I would say, sorry, all of these thoughts were there. Like, I mean, what are some of the most impactful problems where you can give back? You can also create, I mean, something that you will enjoy because it's not going to be like 10 years. You want to be doing something, you need to love that. And then I ended up reading an essay Paul Graham had written at YC Combinator. I think some of you would know. Uh, I obviously I had read it earlier also, but I had reread it, and he talks about in this essay that if there are things that you in your early childhood days that you really enjoy, there's good likelihood something around that line that if you build something around that, you're going to enjoy doing that because as a kid you always like that. And I realized that robotics was always there. That's something that I always enjoyed. I mean, I mean, I didn't, I would say, miss playing outside with friends or something if I'm working. I always felt that I mean it's play, like it's all fun and it's never like work and hence so I was thinking, and some of the ideas that came at that of time, one was in the satellite space that I was thinking of exploring. Not talking a lot about it, like, but again, like you build satellites, and given that now you have better cameras, better intelligence, can you be able to impact, like better predict and send those intelligence back. The other was then around pollution. So, but pollution initially was more like so ये बाहर US गए and then you come back, and then for 4 or 5 years when you were not there, and then you come back, and then every Diwali you have like the pollution, whether coming from like air getting jammed in Delhi,
Yes.
and you have those crop burning, all of everything sort of maxes around this time. And India has like a lot of, I mean, if you look at the top 15, 20 polluted city, you will find a lot of them in
Yes.
India. So initially it was like, why is everybody not solving this? Then it was like, can I do something about this, right? Like, and I think that is, I think some point it just clicked that maybe when I started looking into what can I do, and then I started realizing that part of the pollution is happening because of your vehicular movement, and part of it is infrastructural construction, and there are different. And then within vehicular, then I started looking what are these areas. Realized two-wheelers and commercial vehicles are one of the most polluting vehicles, and then the remaining vehicles are still better than, like the cars, and they have better engines and control. So one then became like, should I think about this vehicle and electric vehicle in particular? And then too, I think it was like that aha moment. Arey, Cornell mein you worked on lithium ion and supercapacitor. So some of these things then started like and
Falling in place.
falling in place, like so that Steve Jobs also, that commencement speech,
Yes.
right? Like being able to then I think from that moment it was like, अरे अच्छा, so your past learning of business experience, then your experience as building some of these vehicle mechanical systems. I mean, over the last 5 years, I would have spent as much time as with mechanical, electrical, with the other teams as well. So all of that suddenly started coming and helping. Uh, the only thing I would say that I was worried about, I mean, in that journey when we started, was that India में एक और hardware company build करना है. That was something that I was
Yes.
really worried about. क्योंकि last time I had seen that nobody funds in hardware company. They are not very great example of successful hardware companies in India. US में तो देखो, you had Apple, you had uh, they have like Oracle doing things. Then you have like space. Up to matlab they have like, multiple robotics company. I mean, almost in every space you would find NVIDIA. There's like multiple hardware example
But
companies.
India was always a software story.
India is always a software story, and then hardware with there's inventory, longer gestation cycle, working capital, all of the things that I've learned recently a lot about. But all of this is fundamentally no venture capital or any would want to touch this thing. And so that I was like, the one thing that I was bit unsure how this will play out. And but on the segment, I felt that this is something that fundamentally comes to my strength. Like this is like, if Kalko you have to build a hydrogen vehicle, electric vehicle, any this though I don't think, like I think I and we chat about also sometime that Kalko I will want to build a plane also, and I'll give it to you guys. So I think so that technology part least worried about. I think what is important is like building for that point that I was talking about, the Indus Valley versus the Silicon. That's the most important part in the all of the technology conversation.
And which year did you start Euler Motors?
So 18. So right after
immediately. So there was no gap in between.
So while the
Q26
transaction
and-
was happening, so I had already discussed this with Vijay that I would want to build something post 26 transfer that happened. So that happened around for 4 or 5 months, and then slowly I started thinking about the next steps. And
So that's where the Euler journey comes in. And that's where the interesting conversation is now going to happen in Maxson Mobility is about your journey at Euler. So let's start with, for those of our viewers who know, most of us know about Euler. You're in the news most of the time for all good reasons. But what exactly is happening at Euler? What is Euler Motors all about?
See, so at Euler, we are looking to, I would say, accelerate the India's transition to sustainable energy in the, I would say, midterm. And then we would want to take this story to the global stage as well. And we want to be associated with electric commercial. If you think commercial, think Euler. I think that's what we want to be associated with. But if you're thinking about building a vehicle or purchasing a vehicle or be anywhere associated with vehicle, uh, building vehicle as an engineer,
Right.
Euler is the place that you should think about, and that's really I think I would say the lens from which I try to look at everything that we do, and we want to make sure that we create a global story out of India, and but for that we need to solve the India story.
Right.
And need to be I would say one of the top leaders in the Indian EV ecosystem and eventually the Indian commercial vehicle ecosystem. I think that would be like a good, I would say, a decade or sort of well spent, I would say.
Okay.
And the reason is not that we would want to become one because we would want to generate a lot of sales or do this, but what I believe is if at the end of the day, if we come up with the best product market fit for the Indian customers, consumers, it will also push the entire ecosystem to build products not inferior to, I would say, a diesel or a CNG vehicle, but equally strong product that are capable to replace them. Because that was one systemic, I would say, challenge that I had seen when we entered, that most of the commercial vehicle, uh, I would say, product that was being introduced were inferior to the ICE world. And we realized that transition will never happen. So Euler decided that Euler that in the short term we would want to sort of accelerate the transition in India, solve the local challenges that you have here with the technology that we are aware, but the value that your customer of India or like here that are looking for. I think that is where we are focused really, really well.
So, so you talked about the way you built Euler, how you came across technology, but from those people who really want to know exactly the kind of products that you are building, what are the kind of products you have on the road, if I were to say, the mobility space right now, from the house of Euler Motors right now? What exactly are?
So today we just have one product like Euler High Load, I think three-wheeler cargo that we have built. But we have, I would say there have been three versions of that. Like
Okay.
so, within the last, so we announced the first one in October of I would say 21. Then and we started selling from Jan. Then we updated it, and then we updating it again. So I think uh, there have been three versions, and I think with every version we are trying to push the boundary. I mean, it's like. While your vehicle is waiting, it's waiting and then realizing that the next one has to, like, every release where that next one has to push this boundary further, because when you're at the forefront of the, I would say, the value that you're offering, right, then competition is you yourself, right? And I think, like I was saying, we believe fundamentally that it's the we want to be the leader not because we want all the capital and everything for ourselves, but it will push the ecosystem to build the right product.
I mean, in fact, I like that. And that's where I, from an ecosystem perspective, how is possibly an Euler product better, different if not better, from other similar products? So why would you think anyone should go for an Euler product?
See, so very
Specifically to this cargo vehicle, three-wheeler.
yeah, so I think there are three values that we offer to our customer. I would say the best payload carrying capacity, best range, and fast charging. These were our three, I would say, the offering from day one that we were very, very particular about.
Okay.
And this came back not मतलब कि ऐसे randomly, not in a बैठे बैठे in some for the first 4 years of like actually 2018 to 21, we built roughly around 400, 500 vehicles. 300 of them were e-rickshaws, L3 cargo vehicle, e-cart. Almost nobody was using e-cart, I mean, for delivery. And that there's also the area like how there's a queue, because that was like the easiest one. You see so many e-rickshaws and you think can I do delivery on that, and almost the entire supply chains, everything has been figured out, right? Like, so product validation was much faster on the battery and the charger, so you could focus on some of the key areas, validate if this model will even work or not, right? Business model, because the problem with or any company like us is not that कि आप टेक्नोलॉजी बना पाओगे कि नहीं. It's more about will you be able to deliver the right value to the customer at the right price point at the right time. I think there is a marriage of three things happening, right? The value, the price, and the time.
Now that you have the three-wheeler segment and you're probably one of the top five OEMs in India right now in the L5 electric. So what's your production capacities right now, and I mean, where are you manufacturing them?
So right now we are doing roughly 500 vehicle per month in a single shift operation. In the next, I would say, year, we are going to push that by 3x, and we are going to push this to around 1500 vehicle per month of production in a single shift. And we'll do this from a Palwal plant. It's in near, I would say, 1.5 hours from Delhi airport, similar like Bangalore airport to Bangalore. I think that's the pitch I try to give everyone to come
down to your factory.
Yeah, so 1.5 hour, and the factory is capable to do other formats. Let's just say there's a larger format of.
So are you working on larger formats as well?
I mean, see, the idea is that we would definitely would want to come out. I think the time and I would say the right product form factor is very, very important, because it's very easy to, I would say, build a product, but building the right product in your fit is very important, because otherwise you can release a product but you will see that transition never happen.
Correct.
For us also, when we launched the L5, You had three-wheeler cargo before that also. There were multiple OEM that already had electric three-wheeler cargo that were not doing, let's just say, more than 60, 80 kilometers on a charge, were not doing, I would say, more than 500 kgs of payload, was not doing fast charging.
Right.
But we realized in all of our, like, the 5 years of our journey, that these are the value people are looking for, because every time I would go and interview a driver or a fleet owner, उनको लगता था यार electric vehicle में टान नहीं है, like it can't pull it. They used to see these e-rickshaws and they used to think यार ये एक साल में पता नहीं क्या होगा. In my business, like there is so much of overloading.
So essentially, the L3 business kind of lowered the confidence of a possible L5. This is something which not many people would know.
So we were the first one to experiment, try, do all kinds of way to understand what is happening to this. Like we saw passenger transport L3 happening, but there was no cargo related thing happening. We were one of the first ones to push this, and so we realized that the vehicle, it's not about the lightweighting. I mean, their concern is कि आपने plastic cover, let's just say you build the cabin, and if it goes into a corner, I mean, their job is to deliver in all that narrow road. Yes, yeah. If it's hit, then who would, let's just say, fix this part? Metal, whether they would dent pen, and then they are back on the track.
But this is a very interesting point, Saurav. Many people would have missed that the population, the huge growing population of L3 possibly went not in favor of the L5, but
initially.
Yeah. So.
But there are positive also, right? Which is that it got the entire ecosystem excited about like possibility of electric vehicle, what you can do. And by the way, I say this, and I know that this is not, I would say, the statement that OEMs would like, but L3 electrification, I don't think any OEM did. It is not the existing.
It happened because
it happened. There are different businesses that got created because of that. They came, they saw this opportunity. There was no, I would say, tier one financer that initiated it. It happened because the idea fit into it was the product required for Indus Valley, right? So that is super important to know.
And unknown to many, in fact, in some of the conversation, I used to say, when people were saying, when are the electric vehicles going to come? I used to just look in Delhi, just look around. The electrical vehicles are already here, close to now 10 lakhs of them.
Yeah.
And that was such a growing, spawning ecosystem, which many people miss to even recognize. Acknowledge. So, this is interesting. And so now I understand that the new formats, etc., are also, but essentially in the cargo space. So that's where it's going to be. So now let's talk as an entrepreneur in this journey in the EV space, because there are a lot of visitors to our channel who are potential entrepreneurs who want to find something to do in the growing EV space. So firstly, and because you talked about the hardware software bit, so I'm assuming that you would have gone through some ups and downs in this space. So what are some of the challenges you came across over the last couple of years setting up Euler or the entire working this ecosystem?
Fundamentally, I think, I'm just trying to think what are some.
Was it money? Was it people? Was it technology? What element of?
I'll keep saying more, because I think all of them is, I think, I will say the last one, all of the above.
All of the above. That's a nice one. So that means you went through the journey.
Yeah, like, so electric vehicle, the electric coming from the battery, you didn't have enough battery engineers in the country. Even though EV has been talked about a lot, but almost lithium ion, if you start looking for experienced people in lithium ion battery pack back in 2017-18, around that period of time, there was almost very, very few people you could count on the head that who would have built let's just say a lithium ion battery pack and had put it into production. There were some, but mostly for, let's just say, a stationary storage in your solar or wind. But for an automotive application where your stress on the batteries are very different, water vehicle goes and there is like underwater, there's cyclone, there's water, there is rainfall
True
and
Indus
then
Valley
problems
ecosystem.
that
Yeah.
you have, right? Like so, engineers, technology, like not. I mean, if you say, I mean, if you know for electric vehicles, in battery with temperature, with light, I mean, charge discharge, your life of the battery starts to degrade after
Right.
a bit. How do you reverse, or I would say, how do you slow down the inevitable aging that is going to happen? How do you slow that down? Liquid cooling is one of the most important like piece that is there, that you need to put the cells at the right temperature. But then you see this revolution happening in car and buses, and all of those in your I would say developed countries had like an air condition, and you were using that vapor compression to cool the liquid that was circulated in the battery. But up यहाँ पे in three-wheeler cargo, I mean, there is no. In fact, even the entry four-wheeler, I mean, mini or the pickup that you have, they don't have
You
air
don't have all of
conditioners.
those.
I mean, and then how are you going to cool that battery if there is no vapor compression unit? So all these fundamental problem, but the problem is you have like temperatures in Delhi when it goes to 45, 48, it becomes batteries are like at 55, 58 degrees. You go to Kashmir, you go to Guwahati, you have very different
Different
temperature.
climatic conditions. Yeah.
You come to, I would say, regions where you have heavy rainfall, like in Mumbai right now, right? Like when, and then water summer starts to happen. Uh, you need to be thinking about challenges are so diverse, right? Like and to all the entrepreneurs, right? Like watching your channel, what I want to say is that this is your opportunity. India is a land of plenty. I mean, there are so many use cases within electric vehicle that needs to be solved.
Right.
I think what is important is to find that three pieces that I told you, which is the value, who is going to value what you're building, what are they going to pay for it, and is the timing correct for it? I mean, for most of the things, I would say even the most experienced team misread the timing part. We have done it a couple of times now. I would say the only fortunate thing that we started doing this at the right time. I mean, though I would say your adoption of three-wheeler cargo is right now at like let's just say 25, 27% on a month-on-month, different months, right? Last year it might be around 12, 13%, and previous, but all of it you can count it back to that 2018, and you say if you didn't start,
then today you would have probably
missed it, right? And
so this has been interesting, Saurav. So we've covered a lot about you as an individual, about Euler and what the kind of change that you're bringing into the ecosystem. How big is the ecosystem? There are many people who want to jump into it, and they're like outside in view. It's like, no, EVs are not really the thing. We don't know. We are unsure. And you bet your entire journey, professional journey on this right now.
the personal journey is
Professional journey, of course. So, which for an entrepreneur also includes his personal journey.
yeah.
So, but what's your take on the market by itself? How real is EV? How real is EV for this use case also? So, both questions in one.
So, I mean, see, EV is as I would say real as it can be. I mean, it's the opportunity that we see with EV fundamentally, and maybe it's also the lens that I see because of the last. I mean, we spoke about the feature phone smartphone transition, right? Like I think I keep wondering about some of that here in electric vehicle also, that when it's not just the, I would say, replacement of the earlier ICE engine vehicle with EV, and hence replacement of, like, let's just say earlier market was X $1 billion, and then all of that is going here. But I think there are more things that EV are going to pull in, right? Like some of it is going to be replaced, but there are going to be newer things that is going to come in. I mean, and in that respect, like the way software will change the experience, right? That particular thing was not like
possible in the early.
possible in the early, and now you have like whether it's the fleet management or the way OEM manages the softwares of the vehicle over the air updates, or the way financer has an access to the vehicle. all of this is suddenly like changing, and new avenues are coming
So
in.
it's no longer a vehicle itself; it's a mobile phone on wheels. That's what I used to
Yes,
say.
or it's actually computer on wheel. Like
Computer
it's
on
like
wheels.
there's
There's
a
so
lot
much
of
amount of data and other things
yeah, yeah, yeah.
coming through.
So business wise, I think it can be as big as you can think. So far, I mean, the way I see, like, if there is an engine running, it should be replaced with electric vehicle, because if there is a pollution or there is anything that is emitting carbon dioxide, monoxide, or there's tailpipe emission, we should replace it with electric vehicle. Obviously, I mean, there are going to be areas where you would want to keep running. That's fine, but as much as you can transition, I think better it is, right? Like,
But then I have a point around here, so which many people keep asking. Um, is the EV ecosystem three-wheelers, cargo largely, and you took your bet on commercial, that's what. Commercial it is taken up, but not so much in passenger as much. From a percentage of transition to EV, and any take on that? Why it's not happening as much in the passenger segment yet?
the Euler didn't do it. No? I think we were the first one doing that. I think.
So that was a very cheeky one, but yes, I give it to you. If Euler was in the passenger segment,
it would have
been
taken it.
different. Wow, I didn't see that coming, but yes.
So I think the way to look at it is very simple, right? See, for a product to take off, right, it has to be accessible. There has to be enough validation in the market about that product, right? And then there has to be like a distribution channel. When we think about all of this journey, who are the people who are going to be the first adopters, like, and they being able to succeed using that are going to create positive stories. When we looked into commercial and specifically in cargo versus passenger transport, in cargo we found like single driver entrepreneurs or driver come owner who would run their family, whether it's the kids' education or like putting food on the table, taking care of the health, all of those challenges, and they're dependent on this vehicle for their daily sort of income.
Right.
There's a sense of responsibility on that vehicle, and it needs to be. So there is this segment of customer that we felt had a very predictable income, would want to save on like increase either revenue and hence sort of state. So they were willing to, let's just say, switch to electric vehicle, not just because of TCO, but also they had a higher, let's just say, down payment capability. Those there we were able to figure out an early story, or you can say like a wedge in the market that you can enter and then try to get in. So, or you can say a small valley that you are trying to go out and win that, instead of trying to win like the entire everything at once. That we could find that opening in the market, like a way for a new player like Euler to come in and establish similar entry at that point of time in passenger. Like majority of the interviews, other than the permit driven and the restrictions that you had, a lot of it also is like there are people who own like hundreds of them, 200s of them, and vehicle are driven on a monthly rental. Then the down payment capability, the financing options that you had and all. So it just was not fitting at the value, I would say, of the dollar per kilowatt hour, or the battery prices and the vehicle prices that you can imagine at that point of time. But in the cargo space, you could do that math and you can show that that you have a 5-year sort of ownership, or a 3-year ownership, or a 6-year ownership, and you can prove this much.
So the TCOs have followed this.
But now I think even in passenger it had started making sense, and a lot of this is also because once there were enough validation in cargo, and there were like some entrant, let's just say, missed on it early on, so they found some of the other parallel markets also, and and leverage.
So then I have a question. So that's all for part one of Saurav on the hot seat with us, and looking forward to part two.